The second part of Denis Villeneuve's Dune saga has been set up to be a huge cinematic feat when it comes to delivering on all the things that were introduced in the first movie. Many fans of the book and that first film are excited to see the adaptation of the full Paul Atreides story, and in the past few years, we've been told that this journey will take place in a new movie trilogy. In the source material, which includes Frank Herbert's Dune and Dune Messiah, there are monumental moments, characters and plot points that, if delivered right, can deliver on everything that Part 1 set up. So what can we expect when it comes to the story, the filmmaking, and the overall excitement for the rest of this new science fiction trilogy? In this video, I'm going to be discussing just that, and sharing details when it comes to everything we currently know about the future films. There will be brief spoilers from the Dune books in this discussion, so I would recommend not watching this video if you are someone who hasn't fully read Frank Herbert's story. But before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding Dune Part 2, Messiah, and beyond, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into Denis Villeneuve's planned Dune trilogy. So before the release of Dune Part 1, Denis Villeneuve made it clear in interviews that it was his intention to adapt the whole of Paul Atreides' story onto the big screen, which includes material from Frank Herbert's Dune and Dune Messiah. He said in an interview, "I always envisioned 3 movies. It's not that I want to do a franchise, but this is Dune, and Dune is a huge story. In order to honour it, I think you would need at least 3 movies. That would be the dream. To follow Paul Atreides and his full arc would be nice." Frank Herbert wrote 6 books, and the more he was writing, the more it was getting psychedelic, so I don't know how some of them could be adapted. One thing at a time though. If I ever have the chance to do Dune Part 2 and Messiah, I'm blessed. Now of course, there's the extended potential surrounding Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House Dune, and beyond, which pick up afterwards with Paul's children. And while Denis could eventually change his mind and want to adapt these as well, I think he's made it quite clear that his sole focus right now is on the 3-film arc of Paul Atreides. He stated before that he wanted to create something as epic in the science fiction landscape as, say, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and really give us a 3-part journey that would feel complete for its individual telling, even though the story does expand beyond it. And I have to say that I really respect this decision. We've seen franchises and filmmakers go a step beyond what could have been just a trilogy or a perfect set of films, and things can at times become saturated or play too much with the familiar to a point where people begin to lose interest. Just look at Star Wars or the recent Fantastic Beasts films as just a few examples. Of course, things dramatically change in the Dune saga's story, and this doesn't mean that another filmmaker can't come along and adapt those stories beyond Messiah. But with Denis, he knows what he's interested in, and he knows the arc that will work on screen for his take in this Dune world. And if that means we're gonna get Part 2 and Messiah to wrap up his trilogy, then I'm all for it. We did learn a few years back that Messiah is also aiming to release quite a few years later than we'd expect, as Denis and production members have gone on the record saying that they will need to have some time to allow the actors to age up between Part 2 and Messiah. So there's a lot of time involved, not just in making the films and putting as much effort into each one as possible, but also in waiting so that they can be done right with actors having aged. On top of this, Denis is planning to adapt the Arthur C. Clarke book Rendezvous with Rama in between both his final Dune movies. So at the minute, we're looking at a potential 2026 to 2028 release date for the final Villeneuve Dune film. This is something that you could further relate to someone like Christopher Nolan and his treatment of his Dark Knight films from over a decade ago, where he made Batman Begins, took a break and did The Prestige, came back to the franchise with The Dark Knight, and then before the final film he worked on Inception. It's like having a healthy balance between making different types of films that can also make you even better when it comes to your work on a franchise. I like this approach, and yes, I know the main reason for it is more to do with the actors aging up, but it fuels the anticipation and the creativity when it comes to making 3 films, making them really well, and then giving that artistic trilogy the room to be remembered long term. Of course, Warner Brothers and HBO are looking to expand beyond these 3 films, and they are trying to get spin-offs made like the Dune: The Sisterhood series, even if we have heard recent issues with that project when it comes to both the showrunner and actor stepping down. So there is still room for expansion within the Dune world, but when it comes to Denis Villeneuve and his interaction with Dune on the big screen, it does look like this is going to be a trilogy, and one that is worked on for quite a few years, so that it can be the best possible set of films. And I think one of the main points that really separates Dune from other franchises today and gives it the long-term potential to be remembered as an iconic trilogy, up there with, say, the original Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, or even Nolan's Dark Knight films, is the approach that Denis and co are taking when it comes to its beloved filmmaking. How many sagas or franchises today have we gone to watch a new installment for and come out feeling like we've seen it all before? The overuse of green screen, the forcing of badly written comedy when it's not needed, the decline in blockbuster storytelling, or actors playing roles that don't need a compelling performance to sell them. It happens a lot today, and I think the main thing that blew me away with Dune was that it was a film which reminded me creatively and experimentally of the golden days of blockbuster filmmaking. We had a huge cast that all brought compelling performances, even at times with lesser screen time, and they sold their unique characters that Herbert wrote on the page. We've barely even seen the full extent of the Harkonnens, but every scene we got with them in part 1 sold their presence, sold the threat that they pose, and helped expand this universe. It was a more serious story in science fiction cinema, and the approach that the actors, the production workers, and the screenwriters took was one that reminds us that big screen storytelling can be just as good as it was before. You know, just from the filmmaking details surrounding how they shot with sand screens to get the lighting of Arrakis just right, or burying microphones in the sand and hitting the surface to get the thumps and sounds that we eventually heard in the film, is stuff that has now become legendary. It was grand yet experimental, and it proposed that this Dune saga would be aiming to achieve things beyond the conventional blockbuster film of today. And with part 1 having pulled off all of its incredible feats in 2021, we can only imagine what part 2 and Messiah are going to bring to try and top that. Just think about how could they capture Timothée Chalamet's Paul learning to ride a sandworm and then riding it into battle and make that look as realistic and detailed as the special effects were in Dune Part 1? How could they present the more psychedelic scenes like the Water of Life one from the back part of that first novel? Or how are they going to go about adapting Paul's sister, Elia Atreides, who, as we know, basically has the mind of an adult inside of a child's body? There's mind-boggling things in the second half of Dune that make you wonder how can they really adapt this well and do so in the more realistic and grounded fashion that part 1 aimed towards. What gives me faith is how they really adapted the book in part 1 to fuel the trilogy as a whole. For instance, they left certain things out that we were all expecting to see, whether it be the introduction of the Emperor or the extended scenes between the Baron and the Harkonnens. And that's because Denis put a pure focus on storytelling in that film, specifically on Paul, his survival with his mother, and the eventual rise of the Kwisatz Haderach. The things we missed have already been noted as a focus point for part 2, because now that the main characters and the world of Arrakis has been established, we can really start to dive into the extended details. Starting with Dune Part 2, we're going to get some amazing things brought to life on the big screen, whether it be things that we know from the back part of the novel, or as I just noted, things we thought we were going to get in that first movie. If accurate to the material, Part 2 will show us the rest of Paul's journey in becoming the Emperor of the known universe and rule it from Arrakis with the Fremen. We'll see Paul and his mother Lady Jessica live in the Siege, home of Stilgar and the Fremen, and eventually they'll have to drink the Water of Life. Because they are both trained in the ways of the Bene Gesserit, they survive taking the water, with Jessica becoming the new Reverend Mother, and Paul gaining ascending abilities. From here, we know that Paul will form the Fedaykin fighters, who will help him retake Arrakis from the Harkonnen and dethrone the Emperor. Within this arc includes Paul learning to ride a worm, his sister Aaliyah being born with powerful abilities, Paul's fight with the infamous Fade Rotha, and the connective revelations surrounding the Atreides and the Harkonnens. So from a plot perspective, there's so much development due to take place, and it can really deliver on all the things that Denis and his team chose to introduce in part 1. Not just that, but there's all the extended looks at returning characters and new characters in this universe too. Villeneuve said that Chani will become a main character in part 2, and that will likely include the moments where she becomes a Sayadina, her relationship with Paul, or showing us more about the Fremen's way of life. On top of this, the Emperor and Fade Rotha will be introduced, showing the true grip of their power, and then according to production workers, we'll also see much more of Baron Harkonnen and the multiple planets too. So on its own, the next installment is going to have much more of everything. And again, the first movie really allows for this development, indicating greater things to come. But here's the thing, while Dune Part 2 will have so much more for us to chew on, the central meaning and purpose of Frank Herbert's sci-fi novels won't be fully delivered on until a likely third movie with the adaptation of Dune Messiah. And that's because the subversion of the saviour narrative only takes its full twist in Messiah. The second novel, which takes place over a decade after the events of Dune Part 2, reveals the ramifications surrounding Paul's ascension as Emperor. In a reverse to other sci-fi stories like, say, Star Wars, it critiques the whole idea of a saviour and shows us that even the most hopeful of messiahs can lead the world to genocide. The very notion of what we are leading towards gives this whole trilogy surrounding Paul Atreides that much more intrigue, and by the third film, it can stand apart from the traditional third movie developments. Unlike with, say, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, who learns to hone his abilities, overthrows the Emperor, and brings his father around, Paul gets overtaken by power, and he's helpless when it comes to stopping the Fremen from killing billions. Dune is of course meant to be a warning towards charismatic figures, and that even the most hopeful of candidates can lead many to death. And alongside the presentation of that central message in a possible third film, it's only more intriguing to think about how the filmmaker will go about adapting the instability of the Atreides dynasty, the trials, and the internal conflicts and deaths of big characters. It holds so much potential as a final entry in Villeneuve's take on Dune, and it can really stand alone from other saga endings on the big screen through showcasing the failures of the hero, how deadly religion gets, and the regret faced by the central character. So as a whole, Denis Villeneuve's Dune saga will comprise of 3 movies, ending with the conclusion of Dune Messiah. It would be quite the understatement to say that the books beyond Messiah will be really difficult to adapt, and while some might be disappointed that we didn't get a further exploration, it could protect this iteration from the wild things that take place beyond. The 4th book, God Emperor of Dune, details the many years after Paul, with his son fusing with a sand trout and becoming a sandworm and human hybrid. So there's some crazy stuff that happens, but regardless, the story that Villeneuve is focusing on is one that shows the beginning, middle and end of Paul's journey, which is great on its own. Although it can be argued that the true meanings of Frank Herbert's Dune universe is only clear in the later books, Villeneuve's potential trilogy is aiming to tell its faithful and grounded telling of Paul Atreides, and in turn, hopefully it's enough for the filmmaker to leave his mark on this science fiction franchise. Again, another filmmaker could always come in years afterwards and try to adapt the next books with new actors and really add to this world, but I think the trilogy that Denis aims to accomplish is a reasonable one and a very exciting one if it pays off. Villeneuve has shown over the course of his filmography that he can do all types of sci-fi with Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, that he can do great thrillers and drama work with Prisoners and Sicario, and overall, I think he'd want to try different things in different genres beyond his Dune trilogy. And if that's what we got and it ends up being great, then we can only be more excited for other films and projects that he makes in the future, like with the upcoming Rendezvous with Rama. We'll have to see how the Dune trilogy turns out, but so far, Denis Villeneuve has quickly become one of the most prolific modern filmmakers working today, and part 1 of his Dune saga suggests that this is only the beginning. But that was my video discussing the future of Denis Villeneuve's Dune trilogy. With part 1 and part 2 aiming to showcase Paul's rise to power, a potential Messiah film to round it all off would follow his fall from that, and I couldn't be more excited to watch the completion of this journey on the big screen in the coming years. The director has obviously got a huge task to pull all of this off and do it right, but like with the first entry, it's clear that the ambition is there and the material is there to be adapted into something really special. We'll have to see, but I'm excited to watch how Denis will capture the greatest moments from both books in the next 2 films, and hopefully Dune Part 2 really delivers on the momentum that was set previously. But let me know down below in the comment section whether you're looking forward to the completion of the Dune trilogy and how you think Denis Villeneuve will go about adapting the next films. For much more videos and news on Denis Villeneuve's Dune universe, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.